Hello, friends. Welcome to Spike Week. I'm Erik Beimfohr, and on today's show, we're going to dive in to a special little tournament we got. We're in season. We're sweating our best ball teams from over the summer. We're playing DFS lineups. We're drafting battle royales. But we got a special tournament on tap today called the second quarter. Underdog had the first quarter in weeks 1 through 4. Now we're on to the second quarter, weeks 5 through 8, and it is one of the craziest best ball tournaments, DFS tournaments, anything I've ever participated in before. And we're going to get into all the nuts and bolts of it and maybe how to win it and do some drafts here now on Spike Week. Let's do it.
Three, two, one.
GM Sword for best ball advanced 1 out of 10. Dang, 1 out of 10 to the finals in the first quarter, of course, which we briefly touched on in the intro. We're going to talk about the second quarter today, but shout out to you making it to the finals. I did not make it to the finals. I had 8 teams in week 3, and we had 3 or 4 second places, so we didn't quite get home. Needed a little more from Lamar, a little more from Zay Flowers, a lot more from Zay Flowers on Monday night, but I'm excited to dive into the second quarter. Sword is all ready to rock and roll with his own strategy. We'll see where we are the same and where we differ today. Shout out, Matt. Thank you. Says great article on the site, like a waiver, a limb. It is this tournament that we're talking about today, the second quarter on Underdog. I'm truly not kidding that this is the most insane tournament that I can remember. We'll dive into it. I'll pull up the article on the site for the strategy around this. Is free, so you can go read it. You don't have to be a subscriber, but I do recommend become a subscriber. You'll see the tools today, specifically the draft hacker that you'll get access to. I got rankings updated for this tournament specifically this morning. On the site in the rankings hub, you can find and download our rankings that you will also see when we pop into a draft here today. Everything that we do, NBA best ball rankings are out there. I updated those this morning as well. RIP to Fred VanVleet. Tore his ACL. We got, I'm working on the baseball playoff stuff for anybody that wants to draft this weekend. We will have NFL playoff best ball, NBA playoff best ball, college basketball. We'll have it all, and you can get access to it for just the one subscription, $39.99 a month. Absolutely everything that Spike Week offers, you get, plus the premium Discord, which is there is a link to join the Discord. It's free to join, but most of the channels are behind a paywall, which you get access for just $5 a month. If you want Discord only, $39.99 a month. It comes as a part of the premium subscription. Let's get to the second quarter. That's right. Exactly. So for anyone that hasn't seen, this is a 4-week best ball tournament. I guess I should get away from the rankings here, but those are my rankings. It's a 4-week best ball tournament. As for best ball mentioned, they did a first quarter tournament, which was weeks 1 through 4, which was a ton of fun. That'll be the finals will, of course, be this week in week 4. Shout out to all the Spike Weekers that crushed it in that tournament. There's a ton of people in the final. I know Rob made it, for best ball made it. Dial in the chat made it. Hacker, our CTO, made it. Everybody, a bunch of people, except for Erik, of course, have made it to the final of the first quarter. We're going to see if we can't ship this second quarter. But as you see on your screen, or if you're listening on audio version, it's weeks 5 through 8. It's $15,000 to first place, $100,000 first prize. But it is not total scoring in weeks 5 through 8, just like the first quarter was not total scoring in weeks 1 through 4. If I scroll just really quickly right here, what you'll see in this tournament schedule is in week 5, that is, you compete against the other 11 players. So 12 of you compete in just week 5, one individual week, little mini tournament, right? And you got to finish in the top 2 out of those 12. So the people that I draft with here today, I have to finish in the top 2 to advance and move on to week 6. Then in week 6, right now we're into the quarterfinals. But then it's only 5-person pods in week 6, and you have to get in the top 2 again. So week 6 is much, right? 40% of the teams from week 6 will advance to week 7. In week 7, we're in 4-person pods, and we have to get first. So a little bit easier than, generally speaking, a little bit easier than week 5, but a little bit more difficult than week 6. It is a small pool, a small pod of just 4 people. So there's ratcheted up variance. You could get really unlucky in that week. You could get really lucky in that week, in week 7. Then you make it to the finals. In the finals, it is a 374 seat final, meaning 374 teams. As you see right here, you can always find this when you click on the tournament on Underdog. You can see the advancement structures here. So 2 out of 12, 2 out of 5, 1 out of 4, and then 374 teams in the finals, $15,000 to first place. MLS is the same as the first quarter rules. Yep, it's the exact same, except of course, the rules for Underdog are the same. The rules for us as drafters are massively different, which we'll get to, right? There's bye weeks. It's the single biggest thing. There's been a bunch of injuries. There's some uncertainty around certain players when they're going to return, how healthy will they be when they return. But then the most important part for us as drafters is the fact that there are bye weeks. Starting in week 5, teams are on bye. But that's kind of how this tournament works, right? It's like our good friend Pat Crane from Legendary Upside always calls like best ball like 4 uncorrelated tournaments. But weeks 1 through 14 is the first part of that, uncorrelated tournament. These are 4 uncorrelated, like miniature little DFS tournaments, but we can't change our team. So it's like showing up to a DFS tournament, but I can't change my team over the course of those 4 weeks. And then I play and write these little miniature tournaments along the way to get to the 300-person, 400-person final. And the how you can put teams together, the types of players we want to target is so wildly different in this than just about any other format. I think that's it for you get $50. Oh, people always like to kind of know, like, okay, so if I make the finals, how much, money do I get back? It's a $5 entry. You can enter up to 150 times. I don't know that I'll get to 150 in a week, but I've only done a few so far. But you get $50 back if you make the finals. So the equivalent to 10 teams. So again, when we talk about how we want to put our teams together, like what kind of player targets, what do we do with this bye week stuff? The fact that you really still need to finish highly, right? Look at the pay, like as smooth as it is at the top, of which it is 15, 10, 7.5, 5,000, 35, right? This is nice at the top, but to get more than $100 back, right? Which would be 20 total teams into this tournament. To get more than $100 back, you got to get ahead the 75th, right? And that's just to get to 125. So to get any real, like substantial money, we're talking top 10-ish or something like that we got to get here. So why does that matter? Well, we need to think about how important is the final in week 8? How important is finishing highly in the final in week 8? It's easy to say, well, just get there, right? Let's just see how we can advance. Let's see, if I made it there, I got my finals prize and no problem, I'll min cash here in the finals. You still can probably lose money by doing that. So I want to make sure that we're building our teams that also set up to the payout structure as well. I think it's always shocking when you look at something like that in our best ball tournaments. Not that there's anything wrong at all. I like this type of a structure, but it's always just a good reminder to think about how top heavy these things are and how highly you really have to finish to like win any form of substantial money, any true ROI on your investment, right? Any return on your investment. Any ROI is dictated by finishing very highly in a tournament. And so in something like this with bye weeks involved, I think it's going to be extremely, extremely impactful. Nice. Bree made it to the first quarterfinals as well. Dude, Mark Andrews, what a game. What a bounce. Straight Undertaker.gif from Mark Andrews in week 3. What a huge game I totally agree. Bree says something else to like. This one specifically, the weeks 5 through 8. I'm not even saying that I'm going to draft a bunch of good teams. I'm probably going to make plenty of mistakes in this specific tournament because it's difficult. Because there's so many different buys to navigate. If you're just like ripping drafts, laying on your couch watching football or something like that, you're probably not building the best teams, because this is a much more nuanced, right? It's not just like, whatever. I'll draft a 0 running back team, or I'll draft my early running backs and we'll move on. And like, I'll draft my 2 or 3 quarterbacks. I'll draft my 2 or 3 tight ends and just like move on to the next. There's so much to this. And it's very, very difficult to, even when you're hyper focused on it, to like nail it in the draft. And then sometimes the room just doesn't give you what you want. That there's going to be a lot of teams probably that make the final in this one, I think, especially weeks 5 through 8, that if you can get there to the final with a team that's really supercharged for week 8, I think you're going to be in really good shape, because it's probably going to be difficult, much more difficult to get there, especially if you kind of subscribe to the strategy that I do here. David says the 50 max limit definitely made Q1 harder for some to advance. I think that is fair. Yeah, like winning 50K on a Sunday. Yes, that is pretty fun. I can confirm that is pretty fun. Shout out Huhames, won in each of the first quarterfinals and did 41 total teams. Yeah. For Best Ball says things like Brandon Ayuk is still getting highly drafted in this, and I'm not sure that I removed Brandon Ayuk from the rankings in this second quarter as well, even though they don't have a bye, because I'm not sure I see a scenario in which he comes back. One thing for the folks, if you are a subscriber, the rankings, as I mentioned, are here in the rankings hub. You just go to the menu, right? Go to your rankings hub. You can download them right here. You can see, by position, you can see the difference between the ADP and the rank. And then of course, every time there's player movement, some of this is like cleanup work, right? These guys are just like, due to some maintenance, sneaking into the back end of the rankings, and I'm just removing the likes of Will Greer and Andy Dalton and Shador and stuff. But you see the rank, you see the date that the player was moved, old rank to new rank, and the total change you will see over here in the change log as well. And these ranks are up for anybody to go use. I have them plugged in to my Underdog, rankings applet, whatever the hell you want to call it. And so you can see those today on the show as well. But I also have that, like I mentioned, this second quarter strategy piece is up on the site. We talked about a lot of this advancement stuff. I want to get to, I'm not going to read all this to everybody. You guys are adults who can read. You can do it yourself. But I just want to like reiterate about 100 times this bye week stuff. So we do have a bye week cheat sheet up on the site, also free if you want to see all bye weeks, right? So this will be relevant for the third quarter, which I assume is coming, and maybe the fourth quarter, which probably won't have any buys, but nonetheless, in the third quarter, something we'll have to deal with as well. And you can check out that cheat sheet there. But we have 4 weeks in this tournament, which means 4 weeks of buys, because buys start in week 5. Something that's really important to think about is when we went through that advancement structure, week 6 especially, but how I would rank the importance of the weeks, right? If we were ranking weeks 5 through 8, let's rank them in put them in a hierarchy of which is the most important. Week 8, easily, slam dunk at the top, right? Week 8 is the most important. It's where all the money gets paid out. You can make it there and still not profit. And it's obviously that there's $15,000 up for grabs there, but there are a bunch of teams. The most amount of teams on bye are in week 8, and it's a lot of really, really, really relevant fantasy football options. The Cardinals, right? So Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, now Trey Benson, Kyler Murray, of course. The Lions, I think the Lions have a bunch of pretty good options on bye in the championship round of this. The Jags, maybe not as good, but there's still usefulness, right? Whether it be ETN, Tootin, Lawrence Strange, BTJ, Hunter, Diami, Parker Washington, right? There's options here. The Rams, Puka Nacua is the wide receiver 1 in fantasy, and without scoring any receiving touchdowns. Puka is a monster. Vegas, whether it be Bowers or Genty, right? Trey Tucker, apparently an absolute superstar nowadays, 8 for 145 and 3 or whatever he just put up in week 3 in Seattle. We have a bunch of useful, obviously, Jackson Smith and Jigba is a smash, and we have a bunch of, whether it be Ken Walker or Zach Charbonnet or Torrey Horton, there's a lot of good players on bye in week 8. You also notice the tight end position gets beat up in week 8, big time. Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, Brenton Strange. Let's set aside the Rams. Brock Bowers, and then we can set aside the Seahawks. So setting aside any injuries like George Kittle, who I'm currently hoping / expecting will be back for at least the championship round of this. But exactly when will George Kittle be back? I don't know. So the tight end position in the championship round specifically is even more thin than you could ever possibly imagine, because basically all of the superstars at the position are gone. We'll talk about some of those. But there is so much importance on that week 8 thing. And there's even little trickle downs, right, amongst specific positions, specifically the tight end position, a little bit of quarterback, but specifically the tight end position that is just like massive, absolutely massive. If you're not paying attention to what you're doing at tight end, week 8 could be an absolute disaster. All right. Week 8 is most important. We've decided that, and we talked a little bit about some of the problems / importance of week 8. Second most important, very clearly, week 5. The first week is 2 out of 12 to advance through. So we definitely need to be right. It's kind of like I got to get out of week 5 and then I can breathe a little bit. Week 6, 40% of teams advance, right? Week 7, it's just 1 out of 4. I'll take my chances in those weeks. And then I want to be optimized for week 8. So the kind of the combination of week 8 plus week 5 with it being 2 out of 12 is really where your bread is buttered in this tournament. I think we can take on a little bit of bye week risk in week 6 and week 7, but the week 8 and then week 5 teams that are on bye, it's a big deal. And I knock them in the ranks. The week 5 teams a little bit less so because there's only 4. They're not as important, frankly. And we can really plan around it, I think, a little bit better just because it's the first week. It's only 2 weeks away. You can plan around a Bijan absence. You can plan around a Josh Jacobs absence. You can plan around Jaylen Warren or something like that not being there, right? But it's much more difficult when we get to the amount of teams in week 8 and the amount of fantasy relevant players. So we clearly need to be cognizant of week 6 and week 7. It's obviously important. I don't want to get to I don't want to draft. You just truly cannot draft, which I like to do. Bunch of I think 5 of my 8 teams in the semifinals of the first quarter were either solo Allen or solo Lamar. I think that's a very strong strategy in this specific format. However, you can't do that if those guys have a bye, right? So despite the fact that I think Allen and Lamar are good picks in this format, we'd have to plan around week 7 because they are not going to be there. And we do have to finish first out of 4 teams. So, is Aaron Rodgers going to come save you in that week? How much upside do we want from a QB2 when you draft Lamar and Allen? That's up to each individual person, but obviously you're going to need one here. And if you do draft, Stroud or Carson Wentz, I guess teams in week 6, not as important there. I think also just to not quite as fantasy relevant teams, though, we have Nico Collins and Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Mason is a smash. But I think the week 6 stuff I'm not overly concerned with. Obviously, I don't want to load a team with any individual bye week like major issues, but week 6 being the least important, right? Week 8, then week 5, then week 7, and then week 6. It's a little bit of an afterthought with the combination of lack of buys, lack of major players of note on bye, and then a 2 out of 5 advance structure in that week 6. That's kind of how I'm thinking about the bye weeks. Interesting. I like this from David. Instead of a fourth quarter, do the final 5 weeks 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. That would be fun. Let's see. How are you handling injured players who may return, for example, Kittle? It's a great question and clearly a super duper important one, right? It's always like a case by case basis. I can show you where I have. So I have Kittle pretty darn close to ADP, slightly ahead. it's like I said, it's totally case by case with every individual injured player. I'm handling CeeDee Lamb different than George Kittle, different than Chris Godwin, different than De'Ami Brown or Tyrone Tracy, right? Each guy we have to handle, sort of with kid gloves. But I would say the upside of someone like a George Kittle, the fact that he's been out and closer to returning theoretically, as opposed to someone who was just injured, like a CeeDee Lamb, like a De'Ami Brown, like a Tyrone Tracy. I'm more interested in kind of taking the plunge on someone like Kittle. You also have to think about the bye week part of that. CeeDee Lamb also, I'm not excited about high ankle sprain, but CeeDee Lamb doesn't have a bye you don't see Dallas on your screen, right? See, the Cowboys do not have a bye during these weeks. Justin Fields, right, is hurt, and we don't know. I mean, it's just a concussion. I shouldn't say it like that, but we have a little bit more clear timeline generally on concussions, so I'm not worried. The Jets are an absolute priority in these drafts, but there's like a bunch of different little nuances to, okay, all right, Kittle's not going to be back for week 5, but he could be back for week 6, and he doesn't have a week 7 or a week 8 bye. So, in week 5, I draft Kittle alongside Juwan Johnson or something like that, and we're all good, right? At the tight end position, just get a good Juwan game, and then I could advance Kittle, and he could be a huge, huge, huge piece for me in this tournament. Do I think about CeeDee Lamb the same way? Am I interested in even taking the risk on Tyrone Tracy or De'Ami Brown or, something like that? Probably not. Chris Godwin, is it worth Chris Godwin? Like, even if Chris Godwin is playing in week 5, they do not have a bye, but how much draft capital do we want to spend on a player who's still probably going to be ramping up over the course of this specific tournament? I'm not sure how much he's going to play. I think that there's a place for almost all of these guys, but each one is going to be, a little bit different because of whether it be where they're at on their return to play or where their bye week falls, what their matchups look like. What will we project them for when they first come back? It's kind of a little different with each individual player. So there's the bye week stuff. There's how I'm thinking about, week to week, right? I discuss like there's kind of a Q&A, if you will, in this article. I won't do all of that. I won't do all of the roster construction stuff here, but the general thesis of roster construction is like, there is no rules. That there are no rules. You need to, a team with Josh Allen needs to have a different roster construction than a team with Justin Fields as QB1. A team with George Kittle needs to have a different roster construction than a team with, like Juwan, right, as tight end 1. If you draft week 8 players, that is going to be wildly different on how you put your team together then. So it's easy to be, okay, somebody tell me how many of each position to grab. And it's like, sometimes I think a solo quarterback team is the best. And sometimes you might need 3 quarterbacks in this tournament, right? Because of how the buys align, because of the type of player that you drafted. The answer is almost always, to every best ball macro level question, it depends, right? Like, how are you handling injured players? It depends. How are you putting your rosters together, right? How much are you drafting of each position? It absolutely depends. It completely depends. So I just know, people, not necessarily you guys, but people like to ask that question, and it's a totally good question to ask. But in this one, it's like, I don't know. I'm going to have 3 tight end teams. I'm going to have solo tight end teams. I'm going to have solo quarterback teams. I'm going to have 9 running back teams. I'm going to have 4 running back teams. It's kind of dependent upon how that draft comes together for you and how you put the puzzle pieces together amongst the players because of the buys and everything like that. I just want to hit on a couple of quick things. So in here, you have these questions and such that, like I said, I won't elaborate too much on. I did talk about the tight end problems, right, with the bye weeks, that the tight ends are really ravaged in this format. So that's something to think about. And how much do we take into account each one of these buys? We talked about that a little bit. That's in here. I do have the question that we didn't discuss. Should you even draft week 8 buys? And I think, of course, the answer is it depends. But if I had my druthers, right? So if someone said you're doing one draft to rule them all and you don't get to draft another team, how would you do it? I would not have any week 8 bye players. In the rankings, you will see reflected the week 8 guys are pummeled deep down, even deeper than ADP in rankings. So if you use the Spike Week rankings, you're not going to get very many week 8 people. You probably have to seek them out. If you think about best ball, right? Everybody's checking their advance rates on this week, right? Or seeing how am I doing after 3 weeks? And if I told you in your BBM teams, your advance rates look cool, but a bunch of those guys are, for a fact, are not going to play in the finals, right? They're not going to play. So would you feel good about that? You're like, a bunch of my guys I can't even have them in week 17. What is even the point of this advance rate, right? I'm not going to win is what you would be saying. So we should treat this one the same in that those, sure, you can easily make the case that you need the week 8 guys to advance, but you can also make the case that what if you don't, right? What if some guys who are not on a week 8 bye have good games, especially in week 5 where it's 2 out of 12, but then in week 6 and week 7, like, I don't know, I'll take my chances. If it's up to me, I'm not going to have week 8 guys. Will it happen? Probably. You'll get back, right? There's going to be times where you just get backed into a total lack of running back production or a total lack of wide receiver production, a little more so on the running back side, but honestly, both. You're going to get backed into my week 5, or I have too many week 5 guys and I need to get out of week 5. So I need Jameson Williams on this team or something like that. Like, that can happen, but I would prefer to plan to not have to be reliant upon the week 8 guys. Wonder how many teams have drafted Dart up to this point. That is a great question, and luckily perfectly timed with the ranks today, so I didn't have to go back in, send them out, and then an hour after the show be like, also update the ranks again because I had to move up Dart. We got the Dart news, and he is reflected at I have him pretty highly. I don't love their schedule. So the Dart thing is a little bit of a doozy because if you go look at their schedule, let's see. Giants. They're such an interesting one because I think Dart has the potential to really upgrade this offense, right? I'm excited for Jackson Dart to come in there. I'm excited for what he can do for Malik Neighbors, Cam Scadaboo, right? No Tyrone Tracy, Cam Scadaboo. I'm excited for the Giants. I'm excited for Jackson Dart. Week 5 is nice. They play at New Orleans in the Dome. So that's a really nice feature of the New York Giants. But then in the rest of this tournament, so maybe the Giants are the week 5 team. And then whatever we can get from them the rest of the way. I know that the Eagles' pass defense hasn't been as good. The Broncos' defense hasn't been quite as good. But rookie quarterback on a probably not so good offense against the Eagles in week 6, at Denver, at Elevation in week 7, and then at the Philadelphia Eagles in the week 8 championship. That doesn't reek of something awesome, from winning us this tournament. But Jackson Dart's super cheap, and I think Scadaboo can get home in just about any spot. And Malik Neighbors is so good, I'm not sure it matters, but just something to think about for sure. Yeah, very unfortunate that the Lions have the Bengals. Let's look at the week 5 schedule super quick because I think it's notable as well. It's definitely fading the Lions and them playing the Bengals in week 5 is a problem, right? It's going to be a problem. Have the Lions had a bunch of big games and you've been able to advance in 2 out of 12 type formats? Of course. So we either, you play to win it all, or you play to advance out of week 5. The Lions' prices are such that it's very, very difficult to build a team that I think is going to be a favorite to win in week 8 with the Lions. If you want to say, right, if you want to make the argument, I'll use Gibbs or Demont or JMO or Amon-Ra or whatever as advanced pieces. I completely understand that. I would prefer not to. It's not as if there aren't other good spots. We just talked about the Giants at New Orleans. That game overall seems pretty good for bad team shootout. The Raiders and the Colts is pretty fun from an upside perspective. Both of those offenses have been nice, and the defenses have not been so nice there. Probably my favorite game, Cowboys Jets. We'll talk about the Jets in just a second. Totally agree on this. Tough schedule, but also not drafted in 50% of the contest. Jackson Dart says, Jason, totally agree. Like I'm drafting Jackson Dart, and I'm drafting the Giants. I just wanted to bring up the what it would be easy to be like run to the freaking podium, all the Jackson Dart, all the Giants, right? They don't have a bye. Dart's going to upgrade the offense, but I just wanted to give one maybe let's not run all let's speed walk to the podium, right? Let's not trip over ourselves to get up to the podium. If that I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah, there you go. Bad weather Goff game against the Bengals would be impressive. Even by Jared Goff, bad weather games would be impressive. But yeah, so Lions at Bengals. You see here is a juicy one. Kansas City goes to Jacksonville, and then my other favorite bad team shootout is the Dolphins and Panthers. Miami at Carolina in week 5 is going to be a fun one. Carolina is a team I think should be, but both of these teams can be certainly priorities in this format. Hold on, let me get to Miami. As you see, no bye for Miami, no bye for Carolina, and they play each other in week 5. So there are pathways, in my opinion, to getting away with not having teams like the Lions in this format. And then what's really nice is you do have some of these teams that never have a bye, certainly do not have a week 8 bye, but do not have a bye at all in this format. The Colts, the Saints, the Giants, the Jets, right? The Cowboys are just as good of a matchup as the Bengals are. The Panthers, right? The Dolphins, some of these teams that I think are just awesome clicks given, right, the bye week issues that so many other teams have. And we get these guys in really juicy spots too. So it's just another reason I think to lean into that subset of teams, because not only do they not have buys, they also have pretty good matchups in week 5. Week 6, week 7, we'll figure it out as we go. A couple other just quick things to note before we hop into some drafts here. If you wanted to look ahead to some week 8 games, I outlined a few that I think are the most fun. The Jets. So you saw the Jets. We'll talk about this. Let's do that one last. So you saw the Panthers, right, that draw the Dolphins at home, which is a pretty nice little spot for all of the Panthers. But then they should be playing a whole lot of catch up, and not the kind of catch up that savages in the United States love. The kind of catch up where Josh Allen drops a whole lot of fantasy points on a bad Carolina Panthers defense, and Bryce and T-Mac and Chuba and all these guys, Jatavian Sanders, are trying to catch up to the Buffalo Bills. That one looks good. The Ravens, right, also have that week 7 bye. So Buffalo plus Baltimore, something we'd have to consider. And how much do we want to pair them together? Do we want to pair them together, et cetera, et cetera? Obviously, you can't really pair. Well, you could technically pair Allen and Lamar, but I don't think anybody's doing that. But I think the Bears at home in Baltimore, the Ravens are 1-2. So they need to go be aggressive and score some wins here, which means scoring some points with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and co. And then maybe not as much for the Dallas side. We'll see if CeeDee Lamb is good to go by week 8. But I talked about the Broncos as a big priority in the first quarter. We'll see how that goes out. But they play the Bengals this week in week 4. The Broncos also get the lovely matchup that is the Dallas Cowboys defense at home in the finals of the second quarter. So J.K. Dobbins, Cortland Sutton, Bo Nix, Troy Franklin, R.J. Harvey, Marvin Mims, all of these guys sign me up for that in the second quarter. And then Jets get that equally bad, right? Cincinnati Bengals defense that just got destroyed by the Minnesota Vikings. And I think the Jets are awesome. Truly awesome clicks. I put down these are, of course, not all of my ideal player targets, but just a couple of quick references that I think people will ask, who would be the guys you're targeting the most. It is anyone with the New York Jets, pretty much. Obviously, Justin Fields, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson are the priorities, with Braylon Allen as kind of a secondary priority. But their schedule, in order, here's who the Jets play in this. So no bye. They play all 4 weeks. And here's who the Jets play in the second quarter. The Cowboys, the Broncos. Okay. But, the Broncos have been scored upon so far this week. It's not ideal, but Cowboys, Broncos, Panthers, and Bengals. Basically the 3 best matchups you can get in fantasy football, especially I think stylistically the way the Jets want to play, really run the ball with those and you kind of centered around those 3 to 4 guys. It doesn't get better than those matchups. Like they're going to score. Tyrod could be the starter and they're going to score fantasy points in those matchups. The matchups are too good. I have the likes of like Arian Smith in the rankings with Josh Reynolds hurt. I take Isaiah Davis and pray. I don't love the Mason Taylor thing, but if you're wearing a New York Jets jersey, I think you are a good click in this format. Obviously, really, really focused around Fields and Brees. I will just give away, if you see the rankings here, the first thing that probably jumps out to you in the first round is I have Brees Hall ranked 6th overall. He's 6. Garrett Wilson is 12, and then Fields is pretty darn high up there. I think I kept Fields like reasonably in check because I didn't Fields 57th overall, but I would probably even take him before then. But the Jets are the number 1 priority for me. They're studs, at least, given the schedule run out that they got for this specific tournament. I also want to note, we talked about the tight end stuff, right? So how do you counteract the fact that all the good tight ends are on bye in week 8 or injured? Well, there's Juwan Johnson, who is right there, right, with the Hunter Henry, Jake Ferguson group at the top, Trey McBride, of fantasy points amongst all tight ends. I believe he's the tight end 2 overall in fantasy through 3 weeks. And nothing about Juwan's production is like fluky at all. I think we could make a case that the Hunter Henry thing is probably not as sticky. He hasn't done it every single week. He had a really big week 3 with multiple touchdowns. Juwan's not like being buoyed by touchdowns. The role is as good as it gets for a fantasy tight end. Dominating targets, running every route on the Saints offense. I think he's going to run a lot of routes regardless, but it's important to note that Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau are out and they are not going to be back for the foreseeable future, which is bleeding into this huge role for Juwan Johnson. The Saints are bad, right? The Saints play fast. Kellen Moore likes to play fast. The Saints throw a lot, both because they're losing and also because they like to throw a lot. Everything is like, I'm not saying specifically sustainable in the exact amount of production we're getting from Juwan Johnson, but there's nothing you look back and you're just like, this isn't Jahan Dotson, rookie year Jahan Dotson, where you're like, oh my God, he seems good, but he really just scored 10 touchdowns. And now we know that Jahan Dotson just isn't that good. This is as good of a role as you can get from a fantasy tight end. And I don't think he's priced like it. And they don't have a bye. Right? There's no buys for the Saints in this format. Then also just want to shout out Tyjae Spears. It's really difficult to find running backs in the double-digit rounds that like are talented, have a role, and don't have a buy. Right? Those 3 boxes from a cheaper running back are basically impossible to find. There are a few, but it's basically impossible to find in this format. And I think just, the guy's been out. Tyjae Spears has been out of sight, out of mind, not really concerning ourselves with them. Tony Pollard's getting all of the touches, but by all the latest news that we have about Tyjae Spears is he'll be good to go in week 5. And so he's going to play every game in this. The Titans do not have a bye in this format either. Their bye is in week 10. So Tyjae was projecting to be, a 50-50 split or 60-40 split in this backfield with Tony Pollard all summer. He should step into something like that. And that it sounds like insane that's like a huge smash, but in this format you'll see once you just get into double-digit rounds, the types of clicks you have to make. Again, if you're with bye week stuff, especially, there's just not that many guys with any level of talent plus volume available at the running back position later. Very, very few of them, and Tyjae Spears is one of them. That pretty much wraps. As I mentioned, I'll put that link in the description after this show is over. But make sure to check that out. You can read in more detail on it, so I'm not just like reading it to you. Of course, I will also say, you see the draft hacker up here on your screen. You can go to this little mini section, which I'm going to do. Obviously, the drop down box doesn't show when I click on it, but you can go to show. There's a whole bunch of options right on there, and one of them is show weeks to display correlation. And so what I will do is go in here and set those to the weeks that are. It only shows 3, so I'm going to do week 5, week 7, and week 8. So you see here, right? I get the 5, 7, 8 schedule for these teams. Not just because it's nice. It's of course nice to see the schedule, but so you can set that, you can show whatever you want amongst normally this would be right weeks 15, 16, 17 for our regular best ball drafts, but you can go in here with the hacker, change it to whatever weeks you want to show. You can change the settings, right? If you go to, you can go to the draft hacker settings here on the website and set to see absolute right. There's all these options. You can see whatever you want. I'm happy to share with you what mine are. You can set all your colors. You can set blah, 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 blah. Just like a million different things within the draft hacker, but something specifically for this tournament that I think is like hugely important is making sure you get the right weeks showing. If you're an idiot like me who uses something like an overlay to help draft my teams, but it's going to pop your correlations, right? So as soon as I draft Jonathan Taylor later on, we're going to be seeing stuff highlighted here from his teammates and from his opponents, so that you can see like, oh, okay, that's a week 8 correlation, or oh shoot, this guy's on bye in this week. It's going to show you a lot of that info, right? Derrick Henry on bye in week 7, so you see that right here on bye. Shout out Matt. Week 8 is all that matters. And Jonathan, resident Lions fan, is of course touting the Lions just because he's a Lions fan. I get it. I got no problem with the Lions. I'm getting way too much Turpin. I might be the reason his ADP moves so much. I'm pretty sure I have Turpin a decent clip ahead of ADP, I think. Yeah. So I'm with you. CeeDee Lamb is hurt. Kevontae Turpin is just like a good pick in this format, period. He's a starting wide receiver on the Dallas Cowboys who have to throw a lot. He's like a decent player. He's a return man, so maybe you get a punt return touchdown or something. And he's super duper cheap, without no buys for the Cowboys in this format. And CeeDee Lamb is hurt, so I think the offense, as we saw, is probably going to crater without CeeDee Lamb. But you can still get some good. Production out of someone like Turpin. Yeah, XFL, great. And he gets some carries in the backfield. All right. I just talked about the Jets, and I do love the Jets, but I'm not taking Brees over CMC. %72% Kevontae Turpin through 18 drafts. That is how you know. If that has to be the most I'm a best ball sicko type. And it's like, because you're not saying it like, oh, I'm galaxy braining this thing. You're saying like, no, I've drafted 75% of this guy no one besides Cowboy fans has heard of. No one besides Cowboy fans and total best ball sickos has heard of. And it's like, I'm very proud of this, and not in like a deranged way. Just like, I know ball. Right? It's like, that is, look at this first round. That is the most like best ball sicko thing ever, is being like, yeah, I think you should take Kevontae Turpin in every draft. Just, what are we doing with our lives? Charles really enjoys the smaller pods in this style of tourney. It's a fun sweat. It's a really fun sweat. It's a super fun sweat. Like, I'm not going to do 150 of these because I don't think you should, like, I would maybe do it if I could auto some of them. I don't think you could, the only way you could auto this, and I guess the Spike Week ranks would probably work mostly for this, but is remove certain team. Just like remove it, right? I'm just going to full fade all the week 8 buys. even then, you're probably going to draft some dead teams like week 5 stuff or whatever. I think that our rankings should be, but I haven't tested them with auto drafting. I think that they should be fine because of how I really prioritize the teams that never have a bye, and then I buried the week 8 teams and week 5 teams to a lesser extent. So I think you could do it, but I just don't think I'm going to get to like 150. But why I'm saying that is because I think it ends up being like a really fun sweat with like not having 10 million teams. You can scroll through each week, and then of course after the first week, you don't have that many teams left anyway. So you kind of know what you have, what you're rooting for. At each week when you advance, you can send the teams over to Draft IQ, right? And then see what your exposure breakdown is, what your what your opponents have and stuff over in Draft IQ, what you're up against, all that kind of stuff. It's a very, very fun sweat. And I could use it because I got wiped out in the first quarter, and the eliminator is not going so well for me. Your boy's going to have to pull a rabbit out of a hat here starting in week 4, but we'll see how that goes. See, like, I'm sorry, but Gibbs at the 108. Sorry, Adam. God damn it! I knew Matt was going to take the Jets. I'll do a Buka. We'll do a Buka. I'll switch back. One thing that I have found difficult is the whole I have my rankings uploaded into here, but I do still want to use the ADP, but the ranks are so far off from the ADP on so many guys, it starts to get a little bit chaotic of like sometimes I think you just end up going and getting your guys, which obviously we're a big proponent of GYG around here. Go get your guys, but it would be nice sometimes to suck them as much ADP value out of them as we can. And in this format, it becomes very difficult to try to balance that ADP. The rooms are a little bit more chaotic, and you just can lose out on your guys, as we just saw with my Jets, very, very easily. See, so I have CMC. Yeah, we're just gonna do T-Mac. We'll take that foundation, CMC, Abuka, and T-Mac. You guys crushed it. Jamie, with just a handful of first quarter teams, and made it to the finals. I'm incredibly excited for everyone. It's going to be awesome. Hopefully we get off to a good start with Trey Benson on tomorrow night. Can't believe it's tomorrow. I've decided, so just while I'm sitting here waiting to come back on the clock, obviously we're doing this second quarter here on Wednesdays. We started off the season, right, doing like breakdowns of everything that happened in the first, and I'm obviously, like, I'm still watching all the games. I'm still looking into all of that stuff. But with the second quarter out, with NBA out, with MLB playoff stuff coming, with there's just a bunch of stuff I want to draft. There will be third quarter, right? As soon as the second quarter is over, we'll get into the third quarter. I just want to use this day to rip some more drafts, to draft some more best ball teams. So if you would like something like the recap of the week, I may write something, but I think we're going to stick to a ton of best ball drafting, because it's what we do best around these parts. To successfully auto, you need an RTA tool that respects team buy limits, much in the same way you can set positional limits while using. And you can't do that. It's illegal. You cannot. No tool can auto draft for you, and you can't. Right. You would have to. I'm trying to think about how you would have to functionally do this, right? Because you do still have to make the clicks yourself. You can't have a tool that auto drafts for you. The auto part of it is you set the ranks and let them ride. If I have to check in and do any management, then it defeats the whole purpose. I should just draft the team. Anyway, you know what I mean? That's the beauty, I think, of the rules and stuff with what Underdog and all the sites have done is like, if you want to overlay stuff, if you want, so long as these things are not, the tools are not drafting teams for you, it's fine. And it's just like using spreadsheets, right? This is where I really, really, really like Jordan Mason. Let's do him. I think he's so he's an interesting one where he does have a bye, right? But it's in week 6. So I'm not so it's the week that is of least. That's why he's so high on these rankings that you saw here. It's the least important week to have a bye. It's not optimal to have the bye, but Aaron Jones, the first week that Aaron Jones could possibly come back is week 8. I am skeptical that he comes back by week 8, and I'm very skeptical that he comes back into like a workhorse role. It's certainly not workhorse. He wasn't a workhorse before, but like, kind of, is he really going to steal everything? Ooh, okay. I might need to move Dobbins up because so this is the perfect like test case. Is that when I come on to, oh no, when I come on the clock and I'm like, ooh no, I'm pretty sure that Dobbins needs to go here. Then I'll go in and tweak the ranks, right? Actually testing them within regular drafts rather than just. I used to, when I very first started, like everybody did, like it's natural. You put your rankings together and you're like, well, I got to get it out immediately. I got to get these out, and you don't test them, right? I haven't even tested these as much as I want to. As you just saw, J.K. Dobbins, need to move him up. It's much more difficult than it seems to put rankings together where like you believe in everything that it's sort of saying. You know what I mean? On auto, you can use the tool suggestion though, right? How would the tool suggest something if you're on, how would, right? So if you're on auto, which means every time you come on the clock, it's going to take the first person from the top of your list. The tool would then have to change your queue, right? And the tool is not, you're not allowed to manipulate. The tool can recommend something. The tool can't physically move guys around in your queue. The tool can't click the buttons for you. You have to do all of that. The tools and stuff can operate just like side spreadsheets, right? That's all they are. That's all this stuff is. It's taking, like, if you type something into a spreadsheet and had it help tell you who to draft based on, right, whatever, the million different things that you can take into account. Everybody does different things, right? Whether you're using the playoff correlations, rankings, right, the Sims, like over at our friends at Leg Up, like whatever the different, and the Sims are just taking into a bunch of different stuff, right? Projections, whatever your process is for the different things, oh, I drafted this player, and so now I don't want another week 5 buy player or whatever, right? Pulling all that stuff in, the tools are basically just doing that for you, right? This manual brain load that you would have to do it all by yourself. It's just easing that burden on the person, allowing them to draft more easily and more teams, which is great for the ecosystem. It's a huge net positive, but it can't do the drafting for you, right? That's where the line is drawn. I totally agree. It'd be bad for our sport. I'm totally with you, David. I think they've done a good job. Obviously, I'm biased. We built tools and stuff, but our whole thing since the 5 years ago, since we started Spike Week, was we're not building something that tells you what to do. We're building something that, oh God, there's Kittle. We're building something that I need to get some Rasheed. I also think Rasheed is a really good pick on this team, where I'm pretty good at running back, and I have some early wide receiver production that makes me feel pretty good. Sorry, thrown off by Triple Trey finals team. There we go. That's crazy. Multiple Trey Tucker teams. But yeah, I think that Underdog and everyone's done a really good job with the tool stuff. like I said, definitely biased, but I think it's a great way to handle it. You should want people drafting more. You should want people using things that make it easier to play your game. Right? This is like the basketball versus baseball, right? Basketball is growing over the world, and baseball is not growing because baseball is a little bit more stubborn. It's getting a lot better, to be clear. Juwan plays against Ibuka. Hell yes. So I think I'm going to move. So I'm going to do a little bit of rankings adjustments after this. Get Dobbins up a tick and get Juwan up a tick. I do think I would take Kittle after that. But what the hell? This is not right. Something happened with DeAndre Hopkins. So there's an error. So yeah, don't auto with the rankings. It's going to give you 100% DeAndre Hopkins, and that's not intentional. That's pretty funny though. Right. Oh God, that's a funny list to see. It's also bizarre putting the rankings together. If anybody like did their own ranks for this tournament specifically, but all of these quarterly tournaments, these weird sort of tournaments, putting the rankings together is a mind F. It is if you believe like me in like the week 8 thing, I think everyone should believe in the week 8 thing, period. But like especially if you agree to the extent that I agree with how just how big of a knock it is on the players with the week 8 bye. If you're on that side, it is insane the types of players you have to put in front of like the best players in fantasy. like all the guys who go in front of Trey McBride is just like, and Brock Bowers, and Gibson, Amon-Ra, and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Puka, and like all these guys that go you have to put ahead of them. It like makes you sick. I'm like putting Cam Scatterbo 10 spots ahead of Puka Nacua or whatever, and I'm like, this makes me truly sick to my stomach to do. But it's like, as we talked about all summer, it's like, do you believe in this thing or not? And like the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, it's so bad to draft. Like with any real draft capital, it's just like so bad to draft a guy who is not going to be available to you in the finals. That's like your highest draft capital players. Like, how are you going to beat 300? It's not like it's a 20-person final. It's a 400-person final. How are you going to beat all of them? It's crazy. Who Aim says I'll take maybe 2. Yeah, I'm I don't think that like 0 is, God damn it, fucking Hopkins. Apparently I'm becoming a Colts or a Saints guy. Rashid Shaheed, Saints, full on little Saints stack. I guess not full on, but I almost took Olave. Hope you like the Saints. Who doesn't like the Saints? Just 13 targets for Olave last week. Okay. Let's see my ranking. Do I want Purdy with CMC? No, let's do Franklin. See what happens at quarterback here. So through 9 rounds, we went Christian McCaffrey, Emeka Buka, Tetaroa McMillan, Jordan Mason, J.K. Dobbins, Rashee Rice, Juwan Johnson, Rashid Shaheed, and Troy Franklin. Obviously, Jordan Mason has a bye in week 6, but okay, we're all right with that. And then Rashee Rice will be suspended until he's suspended for 6 games. So that's sort of like drafting a bye week, a multi-bye week player actually. But I'm willing to take some shots on Rashee Rice regardless. GAB with you. Yeah, I just love Puka so much. He's so good. This is not true. If any week 8 players smash in weeks 5 and 6, you'll advance 0 to the finals if you full fade though. That's just not true, right? That's like saying Last year, if you didn't have Saquon Barkley last year, did that over the course of an entire season. So did Jamar Chase. They like went nuts, and they were still only like 50% advance rate, and their edge compounds. There are going to be two things. There are going to be week 8 guys with week 8 buys who do have good games in week 5, but 2 out of 12 advance. Right? 2 out of 12 advance. It's certainly a risk that you end up not being able to advance. But the alternative is drafting guys who, so it's possible you don't advance out of week 5, or it's a stone cold lock that player is not available to you in the finals. And it's not a lock that you advance by drafting them, right? I can draft players who are active in week 5 and have good matchups. In order for this to be true, no one else would be able, right? It's like, okay, Gibbs is the only guy who goes nuts. But like, what if Brees does? What if Brees matches Jahmyr Gibbs? Do I care that I didn't have Jahmyr Gibbs? No, I can still advance. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. If they were cheaper. Yeah, and that's fine. I have no problem squaring off with, right? It's like, are we playing to win, or are we playing because we're scared that week 8 guys are going to have a big game? I'm going to play to try to get first in week 8. And I think there's one path that's best to doing that. I understand, right, that there's nothing is without risk. I'm so annoyed at this DeAndre. I got to go in and change this. Oh, now I can get a jet. Let's get Braylon. I need to figure out this quarterback thing, but we're sitting here talking too much about the goddamn Lions. Everybody wants to talk about the damn Lions all the time. Yeah. There's definitely, so it's actually a good point, because it is, anytime that you like set out for like any form of strategy, right? People say like, aren't you worried about this? Which really just means like there is a scenario in which this thing fails spectacularly, right? Obviously, you fade a subset of teams, really fucking good teams with really good fantasy football options on it. You fade them. They could wipe you out. But they also could not. Right? It's not some guarantee. Okay, I got it. I don't really want to do Bryce Young, but I have to I got to get some quarterbacks on the team. It's like there is a risk to where you get wiped out. But there is a risk to drafting to drafting Jahmyr Gibbs. What if he doesn't go? What if he doesn't separate in that first week? No, now congratulations. You may have advanced, but other people were also easily able to advance without the week 8 guys. And now you just admitted your most important player is not going to play in week 8. And we just talked about, you can get top 100 and lose money in this tournament. I just want to play for maximize absolutely everything I can to get as high in week 8. And I'm accepting that risk that we're talking about. I could lose every nickel that I put into this, right? It's very with the strategy that I'm employing, I could advance. I could truly advance 0 teams out of week 5, but I'm willing to take on that risk to gain the upside back in week 8. Because the alternative is, if I do advance teams, my advantage is huge. I may advance fewer teams, but I'm playing to win in week 8, and whatever teams I can get through, wheels up, man. Like absolute wheels up. It might be, maybe, dude, without CD, Doritos is second quarter prime window for Jaden Blue breakout. CD, and he says JK, of course. It's without CD, maybe he'll get active on game days, and maybe they'll throw him the football a little bit. I'm not hopeful for that, but maybe they're lacking some weaponry. So maybe this is a little bit of a blessing in disguise for the Jaden Blue. Their Jaden Blue issues. When you look at the week 8 buys, there are far fewer players who could matter than it first seems. Many points are replaceable at cost in drafts. That's the thing, right? So if we look at the week 8 buys, there's only a handful of guys that you're like, that dude, if I don't have him in week 5, he could put up a game such that it's over for me. Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, Trey Benson, right? The Lions. It's really the Lions. I would say it's Puka Nacua and the Lions are what most people would classify as like, that's the thing that could end you if you don't. Like, certainly, right? Brian Thomas Jr., Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams, Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Like, there is a list here. But I think what most people would generally classify as the like things that they're like on the aren't you worried stuff, nobody says like, oh yeah, like Jackson Smith and Jigba, even though maybe they should. It's like Puka, Lions, McBride, something like that. $100%. Philip says, I feel like as long as you are aware of the risk and you're okay with it, any strategy is a good one. That's like you just nailed it. Hang that in the fucking Louvre. I totally agree. Okay, hold on. You can see that I have 50% of a bunch of these guys. The question becomes, I'm sorry, I got to take Cam Ward. I know. It's gross. But my quarterback, Bryce Young, Bryce and Cam Ward is. I need some quarterback juice. Tyrone Tracy, who's that? Oof, tough scene for the Tyrone Tracy drafter. C-Rod goes too. I'm going to stack him with Jig. Normally, I would just hammer this little running back range, but I'm pretty good at running back, actually. Like, I'm not done at drafting running backs. But CMC, Jordan Mason, J.K. Dobbins, Braylon Allen is pretty darn good. This team's pretty good. Don't look at the quarterbacks. If you ignore the quarterbacks, I'm a little worried about my quarterbacks. But if we ignore those, just the highest scoring position, no big deal. If we ignore that, then this team's pretty good. Yeah, there you go. Number 1 overall picks. Exactly. That is true. The 2 worst number 1 overall picks in quite some time. GM. Yeah, Puka is definitely expensive. But I just wanted to reiterate this because Philip says it like, the whole like our fantasy football, best ball, specifically the best ball bubble, right? We spend so much time arguing about like which strategies are the best. Should you do that? Should you do 0 running back? Should you do hero running back? Should you do robust running back? Should you draft 2 quarterbacks or 3 or 4 or 4 tight ends or 2 or 1? You know, like all this stuff. Should you draft, risky rookies at the end of drafts? Should you draft Josh Reynolds? Like we do this every year. It's the same shit every year. That's all we do. But the real story is what you said here. So long as it's like reasonable, right? Like drafting 100%, like, I don't know. I almost said something that drafting 100% like Christian Watson or something is probably just like a level of unnecessary risk that we don't have to do. Drafting 100% like solo Harold Fannin teams or something like that is probably like a level of unnecessary risk that we don't have to take on. But like, so long as it's a reasonable thing, like, and you accept the fact that like, yeah, here's the risk that I'm acknowledging I could lose because of that risk. Like, welcome to gambling, right? Like I could employ the best strategy of all time and draft the best teams of all time and lose because Amari Cooper goes for 50 in week 16 and I didn't draft Amari Cooper, even though he was a shitty pick. It's like, accept the risk, pick the things that you think are best and the most acceptable risk to you based on whatever parameters you put into play, and on to the next. Ooh. I have McNichols ranked a lot higher here, but I think Dowdle is the appropriate play on this team. I wonder if I could get both. Wicks is a pretty good click too. Let's just do Dowdle. I think he's the correct click. see, this is maybe where the line of acceptable risk gets drawn. That is true. This is like drafting playoff best ball, only knowing ahead who doesn't make it to the Super Bowl. That's a good, I like that. That's a great way to put it. Strength of player takes plus what you're optimizing for. Are you optimizing for the likelihood to win big, a tiny percentage of the time, or to win small, a decent percentage of the time? Says Ryan. Exactly. I always get rejuvenated in that regard listening to so like SaberSim put something out, and I know, like Shady over at Leg Up, is just one of the best DFS players on planet Earth, right? Just a straight crusher. And you listen to those guys talk about some of that kind of stuff. Ooh. I'm gonna take I don't like it, but I'm gonna take Michael Penix. But you listen to it, right? There was just a really basic video from SaberSim that came out that basically was just like play for first, right? They went into more detail than that, but essentially the entire premise was like, here's how you win, and here's how the good players play, and it's that they play for the tiny microscopic percentage of the time that they ship everything, because that's all that matters, right? Is that you hit a ceiling outcome a tiny percentage of the time, and you lose a lot of the rest of the time. And then like you listen to, like I said, to guys like Shady and stuff talk about the game of like, just go play where the bad, just beat the bad players, and then kind of, beat the bad players, play for first, whatever. Like, and these guys who are just so much better at all this than I am, like just being able to break it down like that. Obviously there's a lot of subtlety and nuance to their process that is giving them this big edge, but it's really reinvigorating, right? Specifically, I had a very good DFS week this week that helps, but it was like leading into that week where just listening to these guys be like, yeah, just like try to find the way to beat the bad players and then play for first against the good players, and it's like, it's not that hard. It's difficult, but it's simple. It's simpler than we give it credit for, but we just argue about all like the we waste our time and all that kind of stuff, because we all have different approaches, and we all want to say our approach is the best, even though like my approach may be different than your approach, than different than someone else's approach, and they're all good. They're all good approaches. They're just all, focusing on something different, right? A different pathway to first. I always would talk about that from the way I play DFS. It's like, how do I create this like super clean? I always would like the cleanest path to winning. Like, what's the cleanest path? And like in this tournament, that's why the week 8 thing is so important to me in this turn. The cleanest path to me in this tournament is not having my guys on bye in the championship round, specifically my most important players, my highest draft capital players. If those guys don't go nuts in week 5 or 6 or 7, but certainly in week 5, I could survive in week 6 or 7 if they have good games. But in week 5, so long as those guys don't go crazy, that seems like a pretty clean path to winning. Okay. As you can see, I've been drafting a bunch more Will Shipley. We got to get, anytime you can get more Will Shipley exposure, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to. But this is I like this running back room: CMC, Mason, Dobbins, Braylon, Dowdle, Shipley. Going to probably be unstacked Michael Penix, but I'm just trying to give myself some extra upside at the quarterback position. I'm okay with that. We have Juwan and Chig at tight end. That looks good. Abuka, so these last 2 picks got to be wide receiver because I took Rasheed. But Abuka, T-Mac, Shaheed, and Franklin. So I got one particular wide receiver that you probably see lighting up on your screen in green that I'm targeting quite a bit of. But there's some late round wide receivers that I think are pretty reasonable options. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Yeah, this is a great. Like, let's just be honest about what we're doing. We're speculating on sports. So I know that absolutely no one is going to draft this guy, but I just want to shout out Chimere DK is like a legit priority for me in this. I'm not sure if you guys have been noticing, but he's like getting very serious work for the Titans. Let's just go since I'm already on ESPN. Let's go to like, I don't know if folks have been probably not monitoring the Titan stuff because it's not great, Bob. It's not going well in Tennessee, but they're giving him carries, right? He's getting carries and he's taking Tyler Lockett's job in the slot. So we got 4 targets. Now, they're bullshit. It's like Wandale, like he's like Wandale plus Turpin or something like that. But he's like legit a somewhat featured part of the Titans offense. DK is. So it's not like the prettiest thing, right? Where like the yardage is a bunch of screen passes and such, but they're getting the ball on the ground. He's like a weapon that they value. So I don't think he should be priced back here. Or he shouldn't be, undrafted in this tournament. So he's a pretty big priority for me. The Io Manor and DK best ball bags are feeling pretty good. A little bit more, of course, Io Manor so far, but I think DK is going to continue to play more. They're 0-3. There's not a lot of reason for an 0-3 team to play Tyler Lockett and Van Jefferson a whole bunch of snaps. So I think that those bags are going to be quite good. Unfortunately, the Xavier Restrepo bags not going to be quite so good. Huhaim says, I'm getting a weird feeling they may be relegating Ridley soon. Yeah, like an idiot, I lost some money on Calvin Ridley this week. Not in DFS, but in I bet is over. I thought we were going to get a bounce back spot this week from Calvin Ridley, and sadly that did not happen. You want to see another like super duper gross wide receiver that I like? Demarcus Robinson, baby. No bye. Brandon Ayuk out. Juwan Jennings banged up. Kittle banged up. No buys. He's back from suspension. It's gross. We don't have to like it. Welcome to the 18th round in the second quarter. Demarcus Robinson. Chimere DK and Demarcus Robinson. But I actually quite like this team. Like I said, don't look at the quarterbacks. Christian McCaffrey, Emeka Buka, T-Mac, Tetaroa McMillan, Jordan Mason, J.K. Dobbins, Rashee Rice, Juwan Johnson, Rashid Shaheed, Saints go Burr, Troy Franklin, Braylon Allen, Bryce Young, and Cam Ward stacked Chigakonkwo with Cam Ward, and then Rico Dowdle, big old Panthers bet we got going on here. Michael Penix, Will Shipley, Chimere DK, and Demarcus Robinson. Huhames agrees on D-Rob. So does Phillip. D. Owens. So we just want all the Cook, Brees, and Sutton. Cook, like James Cook. I like James Cook, but he does have a bye in week 7. So just something to consider there. Let's do. Should we do one more? Let's do one more. Oh God, we'll see. I'm not sure we're gonna. If there's 9 of you psychopaths that want to fill one of these, then we'll do one more. Otherwise, I'm not gonna sit here for 45 minutes scratching my whats, waiting for 9 people to join a second quarter draft. If we get close, and I think they like Bourne in San Francisco when or if Mac starts again. It's possible. But I think I would rather bet on D-Rob. I think I'd rather bet on D-Rob. Just my gut take. I'll have to go. Let's go take a look. And make sure that you wait for me to get the ranks finished. Rick. Yes, the ranks are done. I got to fix the, I need to fix the what the hell is his name? Hopkins. we got to fix the DeAndre Hopkins issue here. I don't know what happened. Somehow DeAndre Hopkins. What is his ADP, by the way? I just want to make sure I don't have this all screwed up. Oh yeah, okay. Gotta love the manual parts of the rankings updates. All right. That is fixed. If you would like to use the Spike Week rankings, that's fixed. And we're full. Nice. You guys are the real MVPs. God damn it, 108. I really want more JT, more CMC. I want some Saquon, and I want more Brees, but I can't. I have one Brees, I think. Yeah. Sky Moore is on San Francisco. That is true. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not that D-Rob isn't playing. He was suspended for 3 weeks. So he's back this week. It's like not a health thing. It's not that they don't prefer him. It's that he's been suspended for the first 3 weeks of the season. Now, I'm not saying that they will end up preferring him. I'm just saying he's the guy I would like to bet on amongst the Bourne Sky Moore bullshit. Amen, Zeus. It's hard to. We get to this point in the season and we're just like, yeah, whatever. Rashid's like an afterthought. Time moves so quickly in the fantasy football world that we remember the Rashid Rice last 6 months roller coaster the Rashid Rice roller coaster of the last 365 days has been insane. But the specifically this year's draft cycle was insanity. Like the he's not going to get suspended. He's going to get suspended. He's going to get suspended later in the season. He's going to get suspended to start the season. It's going to be 2 games. It's going to be 8 games. It's going to be 6 games. It's all over the place with Rashid Rice. And now we're just like, okay, he's almost back. Let's just get this shit over with, please. What 2 would you trade for T-Mac? I am not trading Dobbins, Scattaboo. I'm not sure I would trade for him, but it would be on the Debo side of things. I don't know if it's Dynasty or Keeper League or anything like that. That probably impacts if you want T-Mac. But this is like straight wheels up for Scattaboo, and I think Dobbins is going to continue to hold that job for a little while. But that could be possible. I think it could be reasonable. You trade Dobbins before maybe Harvey takes over more. Hell yes, Brees. And yes, I'm taking Brees over Malik Neighbors. So we might have to move Neighbors down to 106 or 107 or whatever. I really just am trying to get more Brees. I like this. The second quarter feels easier and harder simultaneously. Easier. We have a better idea, right, about player takes, like who's playing. Like we have 3 weeks, soon to be 4 weeks of data about who's playing for these teams, right? But then, who's playing generally, how many, there's going to be fluctuation in all of that. But we have a general idea of roles and what to project guys for and all that kind of stuff, which is good. It's so insanely difficult with the buys and the injuries. It's like, it's the most difficult best ball tournament I think I can remember. And like, like you have to like be paying attention. It's crazy. It's crazy. I really appreciate that, Ryder. Thank you very much. It was nice. It's always nice to get something out of the way. You know, get a nice. Ooh, hold on. Pause. Let's do a Lamar team. Okay, so now let's try and navigate the Week 7 Lamar bye. The interesting part about the when you're like navigating the bye thing is you also want to stack Lamar. Right. So when you're quarterback and it's a second round pick quarterback, I need Lamar to have big games in these other games, which means I want Zay on this team. I want Mark Andrews on this team. I want maybe that's why I had DeAndre Hopkins accidentally too high in the rankings. I want the Ravens on teams. But the more guys you like, stacking equals good. It's still good. Just because of the buys, it doesn't mean that the stacking is like worse. It's really good, but that informs your other 16 or 15 or whatever clicks on the team. We don't want any more Week 7 buys, right? You draft Lamar, Zay, Andrews, get the hell out of Dodge. No more Week 7s. You also need to not just think about no more Week 7s. You've got to have a requisite level of upside, right? My kind of the stack that now needs to fill for Lamar has to be powerful. Like it can't, right? Like, I mean, I just drafted some not so power, right? But like, is Cam Ward plus Ridley going to win me the Week 7 pod? It's only one of 4, but like, what has Cam, right? I just drafted Cam Ward, but in like a, please God, my crappy 3 quarterback tight end room. Is he really going to save the day? And I don't know. Probably not. We can tell the story that he does, but is the story realistic? That I'm not so sure. But yeah, to writers, shout. I appreciate the shout. It's always from a mental health or just like motivational standpoint or whatever. It's always nice to like get the all right. We're gonna have a good season, kind of no matter what happens now. Out of the way in Week 3 is always fun. But it was the best NFL season I ever had, but also it started off the best. This is years, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago now, where like I had a huge Week 1, shipped a multiple like live final tickets and some tournaments and stuff like that. And I ended up having just like a really good season that year, but also it was like, okay, like kind of whatever happens the rest of the way. Right. It's always just a helpful to not be like you know that it's going to turn eventually. It's just you never know when it's right. If you're in a downswing or something, it's going to turn eventually. It's just you never know when it does, and it starts to compound when the downswings continue and continue and continue. And we only have 18 weeks, and Week 18 is always a doozy. We only have so many weeks in the NFL to like make up for it. So you're just human to feel a little bit of that pressure. You know what I mean? Let's do Chuba instead of we did T-Mac on the other team. So let's do a Chuba team. How concerned are you about Bauer's knee for this contest in particular? Yeah. The problem for me with Bowers is the combination of those two things, right? I'm not overly concerned about his health. Certainly in this contest, we have another week, right? He can get healthier over the course of now. He's going to play an NFL football game in Week 4. Does that make him healthier? I don't know. That seems unlikely. But theoretically, an extra week of rehab and stuff, and he'll be fine with his knee. But there is I think it would be absolutely just straight ignorance, stubbornness to not say, right? Aren't you worried about Bauer's knee? Yeah, of course. Any especially fun stud young player who's dragging his knee around on the football field is concerning. The biggest problem, though, is the Week 8 bye. So when you sort of combine those two things, I'm not going to have any Bowers in this tournament. Something crazy would have to happen, right? I have no tight ends, and he falls. Like I honestly don't know what his ADP is. Where did he go? Yeah, so I have him at 106, and his rank is, or his ADP is 48, and 106 is probably even being too friendly. I'm gonna skip Warren, and let's do Ricky, Brees, Lamar, Chuba, Ricky, making sure we're building up the non-week 7s with some firepower around Lamar. Do you think you could build a viable team without drafting any player with a week 5 to 8 bye, or is that cutting out too many players that can score high? It's funny you should say that, because I talked somewhere in this article. If you go check out this article, like I said, once I'm done here, I'll put this in the description. All right, so in this one, across all 4 of those weeks, there's 14 total teams on bye in those 4 weeks. So as I said here, I just don't think it's feasible. Now, across a portfolio, I don't think it's feasible to fade all of them. And again, week 8 is just so much more important. That's why we're really fixated on week 8. But I think Jordan Mason is just like a straight up good click, and he has a week 6 bye. But to answer your question, I think you could build individual teams that have nobody on bye in this tournament. Absolutely. That can win for sure. It's just, there are going to be times you build teams where you need, right? Like you need Jordan Mason, or you need someone like that, right? That's the counterpoint to like well, what about the week 8 guy, right? It's like, I can kind of have my cake and eat it too, still leaning into some buys, but do it in week 6 and week 7, right? Derrick Henry, James Cook, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Jordan Mason, Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, right? Those guys are still on bye, but they're in buys in the less important weeks and the easier to advance weeks. So I don't think it's feasible to put together a whole portfolio of teams with all that, but can you put together individual teams that have 0 people on bye? Definitely. You definitely can. Oh, I guess I should pay attention, huh? Yeah, I really buried T, even though he doesn't have a. I really don't understand the Saints pricing here. I truly don't understand the Saints stuff. I'm annoyed at the Zay Flowers thing, but that's okay. I don't mind the idea of the Andrews side of things. I don't mind the idea of Likely either. Where do I have Likely ranked in? Oh, a little bit ahead ADP. Nothing crazy, but I think Likely is a pretty good click. So we start Brees, Lamar Jackson, Chuba Hubbard, Ricky Pearsall, Chris Olave. But yeah, it was wild the last 36 hours or whatever putting together rankings, because you're like, yeah, like it's a no matter like how system, like I put some automated parts of the process together, but like you can't really pull your automated process from the summer into this tournament. You know what I mean? It's so different, and figuring out what to just like let some of the automated parts do for you, right? You're like your rule, right? You create like some form of like rules and stuff like that for your rankings. When the tournament is like with something we've never had exposure to before, like this one is, like when do you kind of, and I did a lot of manual updates for this one, because I just don't think that there's any I don't think that there's any like one systemic way to put together rankings for this tournament. And Justin Fields time. Thank you. Yes, I'm comfortable stacking Fields with Brees. And yes, Justin Fields feels like a pretty darn good fit with that Lamar thing we talked about. I just want to reiterate for folks who were not here before, the Jets are just an absolute slam dunk in this tournament. And if you would like to see why, week 5, Dallas Cowboys at home. Week 6, at least the Broncos are at home. Oh, no, it's not at home. It's probably over in wherever, somewhere not in this country. Then that week 7 game that we need him to cover for Lamar, Carolina, that seems pretty good. And then the week 8 championship round, the Cincinnati Bengals. Just a slam dunk are the Jets, man. This is a good point. Hadn't thought about that. Olave is 3rd in the NFL in expected fantasy points. Olave is an air yards god. He has always been. He will always be. It was a lot of prayer yards from old Derek Carr, and it is some prayer yards from Spencer Rattler as well. But I think the role is super valuable, and I think Kellen Moore is going to continue to extract a little bit more out of Chris Olave than what we've seen so far. But I think I think truly, even Kamara, I think Kendre is clickable. They've been playing Brandon Cooks as wide receiver 3. I'm unsure if I think that will sustain, or if Vele or Polk or Mason Tipton. I don't think I didn't take any like real stance on the Saints wide receiver 3 because of that. It's definitely Olave, Shaheed, Juwan, Kamara. But I could see a case like Brandon Cooks isn't exactly out. Like Brandon Cooks played 70% of snaps this week against Seattle. That was disappointing. If you don't, if you were hoping to see one of these other guys, I'm comfortable betting that doesn't maintain for a really bad team who traded for Vele and traded for Polk and likes Mason Tipton. But could I tell you which guy I think is it going to be Vele? I would have said Vele 3 weeks ago. Now, Vele, Polk, Tipton, who would, I don't know. Right. So I don't feel the need to get that deep in the bag. There's other kind of deep in the bag late wide receivers I'm into, but I think that Olave and Shaheed and Juwan are just like awesome clicks in this format. Fucking Hopkins. God damn it. What are my running backs? Brees and Chuba. How about a Ferg team? Ferg, if I'm looking to do, obviously Mandrews is gone, but if I'm looking to do likely, Ferg is a pretty good pair there. The volume from Jake Ferguson has been bonkers. Andrew says, I listened to your advice for the Q1 tourney, and I ended up taking you down in the semifinal. I appreciate the help. You are welcome, sir, and congratulations. I'm glad one of us was able to make it. Yeah, there's a disappointing week 3 for me in that tournament, specifically because I didn't. So David asked, did I play the first quarter 2? I only played the first quarter 1. I did 50 teams. It was that 50 was the max in that, right? 150 is the max in this, but 50 was the max in that tournament. I think in both of them, right? And so I just sat out the first quarter 2. I had enough other teams I still needed to draft in a regular best ball. So I just did those 50, and I got 8 to week 3, and they were pretty good team. No, there was a couple dead ones, but I had a solo Kittle team, by the way, that advanced out of week 2, which tells you everything you need to know about the pot. Right. When we talk about like, what are you going to do if you don't have the nuts in week 6 of this tournament? It's like, I don't know. I advanced a solo Kittle team that also had Purdy and like Shipley and Keaton and like a bunch of scrubs on it. So I think I'm not that concerned about that week, but anyway, so I didn't do the first quarter 2, and I felt really, really good about getting 8 teams into week 3. I figured I would be able to sneak 1 through, but yeah, I think three second places out of those 8 just didn't quite get there. It was like I had like all Allen and Lamar, and then obviously like had them stacked and stuff, and they were fine, but it wasn't enough, and I didn't have like a 2 JT teams, right? And then those teams just didn't have enough firepower around him. So apparently Shahid's going to be my guy in this tournament. Okay. We froze. Oh no. Okay, there we go. We're back. Is likely back this week. I drafted him on a Wildcat team. I have not looked. Let's see if Underdog has any news on it on here. Nothing that I'm seeing, but that doesn't mean that he isn't back this week. I would assume we'll start to get some news on that today. That would be my expectation. Hell yeah. God damn. Is everyone that made the final, are all the finals teams represented in the chat and not me? Everybody in here made the damn finals. Just keep rubbing it in. Particularly great when someone shows up and says, I liked your advice in Q1. I listened to it and beat the shit out of you with your own advice. Maybe learn how to use your own advice a little bit better, idiot. Please do not apologize. That's funny. Eliminator pod day, agreed. Now it's officially time to start sweating the eliminators because I don't have that many left. It hasn't been a good start to the eliminator season for me, that is for sure. But at least it'll be a fun sweat now because I got some. I don't have that many teams left, so it'll be fun. Yeah, that's funny. It was a good burn. That's amazing. To further add to your wound, I had 2 second. I had trying to read that. Anyway, 5 of my 1Q semis advance 30. Oh, 2 second place. Yeah. Got it. That's amazing. It's a really fun, like Rob and I talked about this. We've talked about both of the last couple of weeks on the Monday basement show, the old best ball basement. But this has to be one of the most fun. And I think the second quarter, if you like, I always think about these like niche, super niche best ball games. But like I kind of like I don't like putting together puzzles, you know, like you buy the box and it's 1,000 pieces or whatever. I don't like those like kind of puzzles, but like problem solving games, riddles, like that kind of stuff. I don't like really love like riddles, but like problem solving, that kind of puzzle-ish game, right? Against other people is so fun. And this is the epitome of that. Of like, if you think you can just show up with like I know ball takes, right, and draft off ADP, you are the rake in this. Now, I might be the rake too with my takes, but I know that there are other people out there that are absolutely the rake. You know what I mean? Just load me up. Give me all the Jets. Yes, I know I have Brees, but Braylon can have good games as well. I need to get Likely in the queue, by the way, just so I don't screw this up. I think I would be all right with this. What? Okay. What's receiver look like? I want to actually get some guys in the queue that. Oh wow, Case. So Ravens and oh shit, no, I forgot to change my. I'm an idiot. I forgot to change my weeks, my correlation weeks here. What an idiot! What an idiot! Okay, I was about to say, wait, the Patriots don't play the Ravens. The Patriots don't play the Jets. Not in these weeks. Weekly winners is a worse lottery than the Millie Maker. Yeah. Oh, dude, I thought CD was an awesome click in the Eliminator. I prioritized him too. Whoops. Kittle. That's what I had. I had like 30% George Kittle in the Eliminator. I had a ton of Purdy, right? The whole concept of, I don't think it was wrong, by the way. The whole concept of get like the good picks with later buys. How'd that work out? Not so good. Oh, Andrews is still available. What am I doing here with Likely? Let's do Andrews. All right, let's get Likely out of there. All right. We are cool at tight end now. But yeah, in the elim, I had a bunch of Kittle, a bunch of Purdy, a bunch of CD. Trying to think of some other epic failures. Keaton. I mean, Keaton is inactive. Whoops. Of course, I drafted Shipley, but that wasn't even a big pillar. Who else am I missing? Chris Rodriguez, actually, maybe now he'll be okay in the Eliminator. Damian Pierce, disaster. So there was just, some, specifically the George Kittle and CD getting hurt. It's just brutal. Absolutely brutal. What are you going to do? That is hilarious. Hand drafting 150 teams off ADP is not rake. I'd rather do that than use the same ranks everybody pays for. So I'm not sure if you didn't catch it. In this tournament, hand drafting 150 teams off of ADP is paying the rake in this contest because the ADP is not right. So I would not rather do that than use, and no, there isn't the same ranks everybody pays for. I know how many subscribers Spike Week has. I have a pretty good idea of how many subscribers most of the other sites have, and everybody's not using the same ranks. There's not even most people don't even have ranks out for this, right? So like, I don't think you want to in this contest specifically. And if everyone were using the same ranks, for sure, I wholeheartedly agree. But everyone drafts off ADP. Everyone does not use the same ranks. If we were going to make the case that everyone was using the same ranks, it would be ADP. But I agree with your premise that if everyone is doing like this one thing or drafting with the same methodology, totally agree. You are all good. I listen to people while I walk the dogs and also make dinner and also draft teams. So I'm right there with you. I have to rewind a lot. I don't know how the people do the like 2x or 1.5x. I can't do it. I think there's got to be ADD or something going, ADHD or something going on over here. And I know there's a lot of issues going on upstairs. I've talked about my fault, like OCD with volume on the TVs and stuff like that. So there's a lot of issues going on upstairs. But I can't do the like sped up podcast stuff because I miss so much, and then I have to rewind. I going at normal speed, I miss stuff. I do talk a little bit quicker. I do think that's probably part of it, right? Some people talk slow. I don't talk that slow. That's got to be it. All right, now give me C-Rod. Here we go. Now we're cooking. The problem with what I would imagine normal pace for like a basketball draft stream is that I talk reasonably quick, and I certainly talk a lot. but I can't control the speed of the draft, so that would probably be the part that's difficult. Like I said, that's it's so interesting to hear how different people consume content and such. So this is so funny. Listoic says, I won't put the TV volume on 13. I did this bit. I'm not going to redo it for anybody that's sitting here. But TV volume has to be on even numbers, intervals of 5, or my only exception to even numbers / intervals of 5 is 13. And that's only because that was my college football number. That's the only reason that 13 is acceptable. It shouldn't be acceptable. Okay, he goes at 156. I want to take Burden, actually. I want to get a Burden team and then see if I can get obviously Burden has a week 5 bye, right? So that's something to make sure we take into account here. But Burden with a week 5 bye. So probably I'm probably going to skip. I don't want to overdo it in week 5, just like we don't want to overdo it in week 8. But I'm trying to get a little more Burden. Like if Burden comes out in week 4, I know it was a trick play and stuff that he popped on this week. But if Burden comes out and that's like his role starts growing because of the production, we're going to feel foolish about his price. So I'm trying to get some more of that. Let's see. Very late, but if you're willing to take 76% of a last round pick, you should be fine with 76% of your teams having a 0 on it. For sure. I think you should be fine with, I'm not saying you have to take 76% of the same guy, but I think you should be fine taking a risk. Upside wins tournaments. I think you should be fine taking, because a 0, let's just say Keaton Mitchell being a 0, it doesn't feel good. But now he's just a contingent value bet, right? He needs someone to get hurt. Not being a 0, being right. I don't mean to dunk on this guy, but like being Darius Slayton or Josh Reynolds is like the equivalent to a 0. It's like technically they can catch a touchdown, but even if they have a usable week, it's like not really doing anything for you. So like there's this, that's a slight bit of hyperbole, but you get the point, right? There's like this delicate balance of, I think we should all be willing to take on risk, even if a large percentage of the time that player is a 0. I think we're so afraid. We're like wired to be afraid of a guy being a total whiff, because not only does it hurt you, with your your ROI expectations. Clearly, it hurts. It feels terrible. So from like a mental, a life EV perspective, it feels terrible. And then from a life EV perspective also, right? There's tools and stuff out there now that people are using to dunk on everybody. These are not things are not being used, right? It's all being used so that I can feel good about myself and I can stand on the shoulders of other people that made mistakes, right? And so it's like it feels bad all around. You don't want to screw up. Nobody gets shamed for drafting a bunch of Darius Slayton, but people will definitely get shamed for drafting a bunch of, right, insert some late round pick who's completely useless all season. So it's a weird like balancing act that we all, nice, Bateman comes back, that we all have to like try to deal with as humans, not just as best ball players. But I think we all should be more open to higher levels of risk. That doesn't mean, there's certain types of risk that we can avoid, but it's usually because there's, right, if there's some like really crazy risky thing, but there's obviously like upside to a payoff for that player, but there's like someone with lesser risk and maybe not quite the same absolute 100 percentiles, right? The 99th percentile ceiling of player A is higher than the 99th percentile ceiling of player B, but player B's like got half the risk. We'll just take that second guy too. He's still risky also, but et cetera, et cetera. It's a really interesting game. That's why I really enjoy the best ball stuff, because I mean, A, it's fun to draft a bunch of fantasy football teams. B, there's tons of more fun people now hanging out in the best ball space. Some of the other stuff has it's just a little older. But also there's like so many little decision points that sometimes feel like nothing and sometimes feel like everything. Right? Like, oh my God, you go back and look at some teams right now and you're like, well, I took this team would be awesome, but I took Tracy over Scadaboo on it. And it's like, you weren't wrong necessarily in the moment, but there's just like all these little pivot points over the course of the entire season, but over the course of every single draft, there's like a pivot point that can decide whether you win money or not. And I love, like I said, I love analyzing those little details. And that's why this second quarter tournament especially is pretty fun. I don't want to do, how many running backs do I have? 4. We'll do a McNichols. I know he's not going to score the most ridiculous 70-yard touchdown every single week, but he is the passing down back on the Commanders. So give me both of those guys. I have Bill ranked highly too, by the way. So I want it to be known that I like Bill a lot in this tournament, but I like all the Washington backs a lot. If Erik had a BBM get thrown out after close, finishing with 1, dude, this has happened. Not in Best Ball Mania, but in other tournaments, I've had something get thrown out after the fact, and it truly triggers me. Like, I'm not kidding. If I have, so this is weird because it doesn't bother me. Like if I go to Draft IQ, right? It doesn't bother me that. So here's an example. 322 underdog teams. I did. Let's go to DraftKings. So that is an even number, but that wasn't intentional. 336, another even number. 336. But I would prefer, right? So 394. They all ended up being even numbers across all 3 sites. But I would prefer that they, like end in a 0 or whatever. But that one didn't bother me so much. But when it's in an individual tournament, and I don't have, right, we got the 150, we got the one. If we don't get to the 150 in an individual tournament, and it doesn't have to be 150, right? It could be 50 or something like that. But it will absolutely bother me, and it doesn't make any sense other than my brain is broken. That is funny. I'm a Pats fan, and I always put on 12 during the games for Brady. That's amazing. That is epic levels of fandom combined with OCD, and I love it. All right. I should probably recap 14. We got 4 more picks. 2, 5, 5, 2 through 14 rounds. Brees, Lamar, Chuba, Ricky Pearsall, Chris Olave, Justin Fields. Go Jets, go. Jake Ferguson, Rashid Shaheed, Braylon Allen, Mark Andrews, Chris Rodriguez, Luther Burden, Rashad Bateman, and Jeremy McNichols. So we got 3 week 7s. We want to make sure we're not doing any more week 7s. Ferg covers the week 7 tight end bye. Fields covers the week 7. Lamar bye. We do have Burden on bye in week 5. I'm going to get these weeks 5 to 8 buys memorized pretty quick. Okay. See, I actually would take Kenny Gainwell on this team, but I'm not going to do. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. But I'm not going to do the buy. So we're going to, let's just keep losing money on our guy here. Now the question is, I have Brees, Chuba. My wide receivers aren't that good either. Ricky, Olave, Shaheed, Burden. I think I probably just need to rely upon Brees and Chuba and get more wide receiver firepower onto this team is probably what we need to do. But no more 7 buys, no more 5 buys. Okay. Not ranked. Where do you have Darren Waller ranked? Not fucking ranked. God damn it. Can't believe one of the most memorable parts of my entire summer. Nothing matter. It doesn't matter if I could nail 90% of my player takes, of which is not happening, by the way. But I could nail 90% of my player takes. Zero RB could win everything. Elite tight end could win everything. Travion Henderson could score 40 in the fantasy finals. Will Shipley could actually come back and be useful. And the only thing that a large chunk of people will actually remember is the fact that this fucking idiot autoed Darren Waller in a DraftKings 555 draft. Yes, I'm taking Jalen Tolbert. I can't believe it, but I have Jake Ferguson. Kind of see if Jalen Tolbert makes me uncomfortable, but I'm pretty uncomfortable with the CD injury. But yeah, fucking Waller, man. Unbelievable. I also kind of think I want to get some Kyle Williams in this tournament. I think he could be a guy who's going to kind of step up a little bit. They're not very good. The only team, the Patriots, I think, are going to struggle to win very many games. And I think we're getting a little Kyle Williams, and Booty and Diggs have not been particularly good. So I think it could be time to start hammering Kyle Williams, but we'll see. Darren Waller's the guy you need. Then I'm unsubscribing. I agree. I would too. Is Darren Waller going to get on the field ever? It's going to be tough to be the guy you need if you never play football again. Perhaps more teams available per week, the greater the need for a stable floor at cost, whereas it's good to take shots on high upside potential bagels when the field has less to choose from. I like it. I like that breakdown. I can't believe Kevontae Turpin, right, getting the earlier like flag plant. And then now I'm sitting here like, do I have to take Chimere DK first just to make sure I get him? It's a sad state of affairs. Like, it's actually quite nice outside. It's supposed to be. It's been raining for the last like 24 hours, but it's supposed to be nice. Oh yeah, it's like 70 degrees, a little bit of sunshine out, and I'm sitting in my basement figuring out at what point do I have to draft Kevontae Turpin, Chimere DK, and Kyle Williams to make sure I get them onto fantasy football teams in week 4 of the NFL season. I often stop and think about like, where did everything go wrong? You know, like what led me to this? How does this even happen? I'm sure my poor mother is probably like still just bewildered at like, you sat for 2 hours and talked about a bunch of wide receiver 4s on, she don't even know what that means, but like a bunch of like total no-name guys for 2 hours. That's insane. I am in Illinois, Jerry. I am in Illinois. I always say St. Louis. Obviously, I'm a diehard, but like I live 20 minutes outside the city. I can hop, skip, and a jump, get to downtown. You see, so it's so interesting because some guys like Parker Washington would be an awesome click. Like truly would be an awesome click. And he just has a week 8. He just has a week 8 bye, right? I would love to be smashing Parker Washington right now. So I think he fits like everything you think you want in this. I will say, if you run into needing wide receiver production, like someone could probably argue that I do, I don't think someone like Parker Washington is, if I'm going to do the week 8 buy thing, right? This is all the nuance part of it, where it's easy to say, well, just, and I have been saying it, like, I don't want to draft any week 8 guys. But sometimes you'll run into a room where it's like, shoot, man, I just need anything I can get for those first couple of weeks at the wide receiver position. And Parker Washington with De'Ami Brown hurt and Travis Hunter, not really playing a ton of wide receiver. It's just like a pretty good pathway to pray to God he scores a touchdown, right? He could be the reason you advance. I would rather, when I'm talking about the week 8 stuff, I would rather that. That's the week 8 I would prefer than the first round pick that's not available to me in the finals. That's funny. Oh, baby, 20 minutes outside Detroit. Go Lions. What a win. What a win for the Lions. I'm taking Kyle Williams here to close this sucker out. Let me recap the team, and then we can all get out of here. Everyone can go enjoy their wonderful Wednesday. I'll be back tomorrow talking about the week 4 slate. We'll go game by game, talk some DFS, talk some of our favorite bets, talk some start sits, what we're thinking overall, right? Everything for week 4, kind of get a grasp on week 4. Obviously, week 3 went quite well. Lots of focus on the Bears and Cowboys game, the superstar running backs, plus the smash that was Jordan Mason. We talked about that last week, so we'll see what we can get into tomorrow with week 4. And I will make sure to get a couple of tweaks to the second quarter rankings. I fixed the DeAndre Hopkins one here on the show, but I'll make sure to get a couple tweaks into those rankings that we talked about here during the drafts. But we went Breece Hall, Lamar Jackson, Chuba Hubbard, Ricky Pearsall, Chris Olave, Justin Fields to cover for Lamar Jackson, of course, and the Jets go Burr in this tournament. Jake Ferguson also probably goes Burr in this tournament without CD. Rashid Shaheed, Braylon Allen, Mark Andrews stacked with Lamar, Chris Rodriguez, Luther Burden, Rashad Bateman, Jeremy McNichols, Will Shipley, because of course, Jalen Tolbert, kind of betting on that whole, like, okay, CD's going to miss some time thing for the Cowboys. Chimere DK, one of my guys in the late rounds of this tournament. I can't believe this is where we are at. And Kyle Williams of the New England Patriots. That's hilarious. You are very welcome. David, thank you guys for showing up. Hit that like button on your way out, as everybody loves to say. Like and subscribe, please. But seriously, do that. Seriously, do like and subscribe. It would be helpful. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Let's talk some week 4 tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. Same bat time, same bat channel. Enjoy your day. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.